'Tis I, your old pal King Chuck, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. We had some major thunder showers last week. It's funny how one day it'll be in the 60s, and then the next day, boom, back down to the 30s again. Yeah, it's that time of year again, I'm afraid. I was actually chatting with somebody who was sick. So, yeah. I'll tell you, man, I'm wondering if there's a virus going around or something. But anyway, let's talk about some of the things going on. Let's talk about northern Michigan for a minute, where I'm originally from. So I made a prediction a few days ago on my website, on this podcast, actually. And the prediction was that Jack O'Malley was going to be the new morning host at WTCM News Talk 580. And I was right. Jack O'Malley, so because Ron Jolly is retiring, and Jack recently was let go from 1310. 1310, which was WTCM Gold, which was the classic country station. Of course, Jack O'Malley was the longtime morning guy at WTCM FM, the country station, 103.5, and then he ended up, then he became a legislator, and due to redistricting, he got kicked out of office, and rightfully so. He's a right-wing douche, MAGA moron, and so anyway, after he got what happened was, after he got booted out of office, for a while he was doing radio in Alpena at WTCM sister station, WATZ, and now he's back in Traverse City again. So he was on 1310, WTCM Gold, which is actually WCCW AM. They recently flipped to sports. And now O'Malley is going to go to mornings, replacing the retiring Ron Jolly. So that's the biggest news going on in northern Michigan. And Ron's new co-host is going to be Wendy Nienhaus, who already hosts a segment on WTCM called Boomer Logic. I gotta get my mic closer to me because a plane is over my head. The joys of being the flight path of Ford Airport. So, anyway, Jack O'Malley is going to be new. So the story with 1310 is they flipped to Michigan sports. They went with the Michigan, 97.1 Detroit Sports Network. And they're fetching the northern Michigan sports fan a bone, I think. And the reason why is because nobody in northern Michigan wants to carry the Tigers or the Red Wings in Traverse City. And it's very sad, considering, McDonald Garber has sports stations in Petoskey and Calac. Black Diamond has a sports station. They got Tigers and Red Wings on one of their stations in Sheboygan, I think. But Midwestern, different story. They carried the Tigers for decades on 580, and then they moved them over to 1310 when 1310 went 24/7. And then they lost the teams because so what happened was northern Michigan used to have a glut of sports stations, and what happened was, excuse me, a little gassy here. So the story was, the folks in Grayling, Black Diamond, Blarney Stone Broadcasting, they of course leased out a bunch of stations. They first leased out for sports 92.3 in Benzie County. They lost that frequency, so they moved it to 1210 AM and 101.1 in Traverse City. They lost that frequency, so now all those stations are now, it's like so anyway, what's going on is that they pretty much, they still air the Tigers and Red Wings and Pistons and Lions down Grayling. But Traverse City, nope, no Traverse City for those teams. So logic would have had it that Midwestern Broadcasting would have brought those teams back to town on 1310. But here's a problem with 1310. 1310 used to be a 24/7 station up until a few years ago. And then what happened was 1310
Perfect. Park and then walk.
Yeah.
For exercise.
Yeah. So I'm walking by a guy here. So here's the story with 1310. 1310 used to be a 24/7 station. And then what happened was they lost their transmitter site. And they ended up having to become a daytimer when they moved their transmitter to right by WCCW FM's transmitter. So that's kind of how things are. So now Traverse City doesn't have a sports station or anybody carrying the Tigers or Red Wings. But here's the thing. I'm talking to you with old school logic, because it's like a town in Michigan without a Tiger or Red Wing or sports station. Detroit sports station. Back in the day it would be like, well, what happened in Oakland when they lost all their sports teams not too long ago. But get this. This is the 2020s. People have cell phones. They can listen to, Tiger games on the internet or stream the games on their phone. Yeah, and it's like, but here's the thing. This is proof as to why local TV and radio is losing their ass on everything. They don't care what the listeners want anymore. And every time they cut back on something, they say they can't come up with some bullshit like, we have, it's a business decision. Oh, we're losing money. And I know the objective is always, to make money. But the sad truth is, there's a lot of Northern Michigan radio stations that have no ratings. Z93 is one of them. And there's that part of me that says, why don't they carry the line, the Tigers and Red Wings? I mean, they actually used to back in the day. Obviously because, the guy who owned the Tigers, John Fetzer, owned that station back in the day. It would make sense. But I don't know if it's going to happen because the Bierman family, and Chris Warren, the problem is they don't care. And they come up with the bullshit excuse. Every time we hear a Tigers game, everyone calls us and tells us to put the music back on. Bullshit. I'll tell you, man, this is what pisses me off about corporate media. So what's going on is, you got all these big corporations that control the media. Up in Northern Michigan, the FCC has told all these companies, go ahead and get rid of your shell companies and just say you own these other stations outright. Stupid. 2 companies controlling 4 TV stations. And that means less choice of local news, weather, sports, you name it. And I go to the internet all the time. And it's the same old shit. 9 and 10 sucks. I like 7 and 4, but I don't like the owners. And the same with local radio. Some guy even admitted that, they don't like what's going on at 107.5. They recently adjusted their format to become more of a 80s station. Yeah, Good Vibes 107.5. And what's problematic is that, all the liners on the station sound like it was all locally recorded by some woman. And she doesn't even have a good voice. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? They don't get it. They are out of ideas on how to make a successful station. I mean, hey, if I can't afford a good voice for the station, I would just use AI. Big whoop. And I have mixed, folks, I have mixed feelings about AI. Because, AI is the latest advancement in life. Kind of like what happened in the 1920s when films used to be all silent. Then they added sound and people were like, uh-oh, all the silent stars who can't talk, they're going to be out of business. And when everything went to color and widescreen and all that shit. But anyway, so the story right now is that this is further proof of how things are changing. So this week it was announced that NBCUniversal, daytime TV used to be a big deal, but it was just announced this week that NBCUniversal was getting out of the syndication business. They already announced that Kelly Clarkson's talk show is coming to an end. And now the three other shows that they were syndicated, Access Hollywood, which was on for 30 years. Steve Wilkos, now Steve was in television since the days of Jerry Springer, 1994. He was once his sidekick, and then he ended up with his own show. And the show was pretty good for a couple of years, and then in more recent years, Steve kind of toned it down a little bit. He stopped tossing chairs and stopped getting extremely angry. And a lot of it was because of his wife. She became the executive producer. Now all these shows used to be produced in Chicago. Steve Wilkos, Jerry Springer, and Maury. Yeah, and Maury Povich was out in New York City, actually. And NBC, so many years ago, NBC, which was owned by GE at the time, GE was based in Connecticut. They took a giant tax break to move all these shows to this Stamford, Connecticut. And I guess there was a theater in Stamford, like a performing arts theater. They were having cash issues, so they worked together with NBC to turn it into a TV studio, and all these shows migrated from Chicago to New York City, Stamford, Connecticut, excuse me. So it created a lot of jobs and industry for the state. And so now NBC is saying, we're getting out of the syndication business because of money. And you also have to remember that since then, GE has sold their shares of NBCUniversal over to Comcast. And Comcast, and the Comcast story is that they're giving a lot of money to Trump to build his little ballroom in the the east wing of the White House, and anyway, but a lot has also happened too. Of course, Jerry Springer retired from his talk show. He stopped doing his talk show. He started doing a judge show, Judge Jerry, because he used to be a lawyer, and then he dies. He died of cancer. 79 years old. He kept it a secret because Steve Wilkos even said that he didn't even know that he had cancer. But yeah, it was a very deep secret because he was a very private gentleman. And then Maury Povich retired. He decided to retire. I think he now lives in Montana with Connie Chung. And he basically gave the honors of finding out who the baby daddy is, over to this guy Karamo Brown, who was on Career Eye for the Straight Guy, and then Steve Wilkos. So that Steve Wilkos was the hanger-on of the 3 shows. But even Steve had his problems. He got busted for drunk driving, wrapped his Lexus around a light pole. He, not only that, he pissed off a lot of his fans by being a Trump supporter. And I remembered what he said. He didn't support, he didn't like Hillary Clinton. And I'm like, why would you want... So it's like, I hate Hillary Clinton, but Trump's even worse. Okay? We all know that. I mean, Hillary is a Democrat in name only. She does everything until somebody forks over the money. That's why we don't have universal health care in America. That's why, she supported the Iraq War. She's a corporate Democrat, plain and simple. Apologize for the wind. So that's the way it is. And, of course, Steve recently turned 62, and he joked that he says that he's going to enjoy retirement, and now he can collect Social Security. And I'm like, yeah, well, but he also said that he was also a wise investor, so I'm wondering I'm pretty sure he's got some money in his pocket. Now, Rochelle, on the other hand, I'm not sure what's going to happen to her. So, anyway, excuse me. Anyway, let's move on to another subject here. So my take on the media has been, I know it's evolving, and people have spoken. People want. People are turning away from TV and radio in droves, and we have to evolve. And TV and radio, they need to, figure it out. What can they do to bring viewers back? And I know that, NBC has a ton of shows in their vault. And, they, old episode, there's 10-year-old episodes of Maury that are still airing on TV, but when it comes to new shows, it is a bit of a mystery. But it's all up to the viewer. Anyway, so let's get back to what we were talking about here about. So anyway, enough about the media right now. Let's talk about another serious matter, and this is news that really pisses me off. So, over in Oklahoma, they are now considering a law that would force exotic dancers, strippers, to wear a license. That's right. Strippers will have to have a license, like a driver's license. And they say that, well, we're going to get rid of sex trafficking with this. So under this new law, the minimum age will go up from 18 to 21. And now, with this law, dancers would have to show off their real name and where they live. So basically what this is a scarlet letter. It's a scarlet letter law, plain and simple. And I'm talking to my dog here. So what this law will do is it will turn into a scarlet letter law, basically telling women, shame on you for taking your clothes in front of men. And my take is, they've been doing this forever and ever. Back in the 60s, and I've said this multiple times, folks, the people who have tried to eliminate adult entertainment here in America, they're the biggest hypocrites who ever lived. They're the liars. They're the adulterers. They are the stealers. And they're the sexual, they're the ones who are sexual offenders. One of my favorite examples, back in the 1980s, there was a children's program on TBN called Joy Junction, and there was a puppeteer on the show named Ron Brown. How are you doing? Ron Brown was a puppeteer on the show. He had his own company of marionettes. And so what happened was he had a puppet named Marty. And Marty was a very creepy looking puppet. And it's a viral video, folks. If you want to see it, just do a Google search. So what happened was Ron and Marty had this conversation about Marty's friends finding dirty pictures in Marty's friend's bed, under the bed. And then they were like, oh, I have to flee from this, and I have to tell Mommy and Daddy. And that's right, Marty, because dirty pictures will take you to hell. And you know what the Bible says about dirty pictures? Flee from everything that's all wicked. Back to Jerry Springer for a second. Remember he had a guy on there named Reverend Schnorr? He was that guy who, unfortunately, would grab the Bible and read a rando verse, and it had nothing to do with what the white trash were fighting about on stage. Guess what? That's how I feel about it. The Bible, in my opinion, is very vague when it comes. It's like how a lot of right-wingers will cry that 1 Corinthians 6:9 explicitly said that Jesus hates gay people. And yet, other versions of the Bible, they call it gay prostitution or men who sleep with men. They do it. The thing is that the Bible, the Greek texts where the Bible originated from, they don't have a term for homosexuality. They don't. That's why it has led to the longest time of fighting. And just, religion to me just does nothing but fuck people up. Well, back to good old Ron Brown. Ron Brown. So after Joy Junction left the airwaves, Ron Brown continued to be a puppeteer, going to kids' birthday parties and church functions. Well, many years ago, somebody was in an internet chat room, and somebody was saying that he was a puppeteer and was going to kids' birthday parties and stuff, and he said something about killing a young boy. And the police were called because it was a threat, and it turned out it was Ron Brown. They found out, they traced the IP address to Ron's address. And, Ron lived in a small double wide trailer in a trailer park. And it was him. Ron. So anyway, Ron, police got a warrant for his arrest. They went into his home. He had hundreds, maybe even thousands of images of child pornography, both hard copy and on his computer. He had pictures of dead children. This guy was sick. Anyway, he ended up going to jail. I guess he was sentenced for like 10 years originally. But then he died in prison a few years ago. Good for him. Yeah, I guess he had like multiple sclerosis or something. I forgot what he died from, but it's proof that the people who want to get rid of porn and strippers and anything having to do with sex, they are the biggest scum on earth. And, they are against freedom of speech. They are against, they basically want to tell people that if you can't get a girl, you don't have a place to go. I've been to the bar. I've been to churches. I'm tired of going to the bars and only men want to talk to me. I'm straight. Go away. It's like gay men who hit on straight guys. They're the reason why there's so much hate towards the LGBTQ plus community. And they create a stigma that, that they're out there to turn you into something else. And they want to rip up your gay, your straight, your man card. That's what it is, folks. And, I respect the LGBTQ plus community, but the problem is that I love women. And, I just haven't been down the right path yet. Nobody wants to show me, it seems. Instead, I end up, having my father live with me, and, sometimes he can be a royal asshole like he was last night. He gets angry at me if I can't find something to watch on TV. Or he wants me, it's like I get home after a rough day at work and he has me call up a bunch of people to make appointments because he can't do it on his own. It's like he's almost a vegetable because I'm the one who knows technology and he doesn't. He doesn't even know how to use Google. Oh, man. It's like I fucking hate boomers sometimes. Yeah, they're the ones who got us into this mess in the first place because let's face the facts, folks. You look at, folks, these right-wingers, they want to shut down the sex industry, and they're also pro-life. Oh, we got to protect our children, protect the unborn. And guess what happens? They elect a leader who installs a Supreme Court who ends up overturning Roe v. Wade. Is a victory for the religious right. And look at what happened. Just the other day, we shot a bomb, a missile, into an Iranian girls' school. And countless fatalities were reported. And they knew that it was a girls' school. They knew there was a lot of people in there. They were not shooting at the enemy, folks. And this further proves my point that Donald Trump is a sick, disgusting man. It's sad that I'll be 45 in May. And we've only had maybe 12 good years of good presidency in this country in my lifetime. I don't necessarily count Clinton because Clinton was more center right. Obama was a little bit in the center himself, and both were a little bit on the left on many issues, but Obama, his solution to healthcare was more of a centralist decision. And now millions of people are losing that healthcare advantage. Or have lost it already. And that's what happens, folks, when we elect people like Trump. Already here in Grand Rapids, we don't have strip clubs anymore. 20 years ago, this nasty old lady, Judy Rose, she got angry when a strip club opened up down the street from her. So she ended up talking to the city of Grand Rapids. They said, give us $80,000. We'll take care of it. She ends up getting an angel donor. And rumor has it, it was Dick DeVos, who was running for governor at the time. And, Dick DeVos, she appeared in one of his ads, So that's why people are like, yeah, it was all her. It was all him and her, basically. So now, here in Grand Rapids, we have 2 clubs, our bikini clubs. If you want to see pussy, you got to go all the way to Muskegon. And what's even worse is that the other day, on Facebook, on a Facebook group about Grand Rapids, people complained about how, is there a good place to meet singles in Grand Rapids? And it was all jokes. It was like there was no really good answer. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Because, I've been single for too long and I haven't been on a date in 2 years. I even, randomly swiped right on a bunch of people and they weren't the right people. They were all a bunch of, some of them were grandmothers. It's like, go away. Yeah. But folks, that's the problem. Grand Rapids is one of the most depressing cities on earth. And they want to keep it that way. They don't want you to be happy. That's what it is. They want you to feel terrible. And usually if you're in a breakup, or if you're in the middle of a sad moment in your life, you want to be with women. You don't want to hang out with more dudes. And some of them are, try to make you into a gay man, like what happened to me many years ago. That's why we have strip clubs, folks. And unfortunately, I agree with Darren Gibson, who is my good friend from Southpaws, who worked at strip clubs for many years. He talked about how he, for many years, he worked at a club called Parkway Tropics here in town. Parkway Tropics is now a bikini club. It used to be topless. And Darren said that Parkway was one of the best places he ever worked at. And now it's a shadow of its former self because of what Judy Rose did to the community. And Darren even mentioned that they personally invited Bliss, Rosalind Bliss, who later became mayor, to come to the community, come to the club. We'll prove it to you that we do things right here. We're on the right path. And her response was, nah, I made up my mind. I'm happy with my decision. She was one of the people who voted to get this law passed. She is a Democrat in name only, folks. She is a fake. And they were like, oh, Grand Rapids crime rate will go down because of our law. And no, it hasn't. It's gotten worse. It's like at times Grand Rapids is a joke because of... I forgot to lock my door. Damn it. And the sad truth is, Grand Rapids has more crime. You got people getting shot at all the time. It's not necessarily a safe city. And it's all because of the religious right. But, ooh, we're getting a new soccer stadium and a new amphitheater. Woo! That's nice, but what if you're a lonely guy? What if you're lonely, like I am? It's like, I want to spend my Saturday nights with chicks. I don't want to spend it with my dad. And watch another episode of Tulsa King. Yeah, Sylvester Stallone, I had some respect for him, but, because he's a Trumper, fuck him. The point is, folks, is that, Darren is right. In all of his years of working at a strip club, here's the truth. Sex trafficking doesn't happen at strip clubs. It happens at restaurants. It happens in convenience stores. It happens there. There's very strict laws that strip clubs have where you can't go out with the dancers. And it's true, you can't just take a hot chick home because that's how it is. And that's why I'm against this law that they're talking about in Oklahoma. You know, it's like the offspring. You got to keep them separated. You know, work life. If you're a stripper, you got to keep your work life and your home life separated. And it's like, I worked for the same company for 24 years. The only time I've had coworkers come home with me was when, I had a woman living with me and I had to kick her out because she was a junkie. And, it was affecting my work performance. And, she became she was very problematic. And it's like, that's the problem with Grand Rapids. It's like this town has very few women, good women, who are single and meet my criteria for dating. And it's like, I've already told you the sad story about my dating life. I don't want to, I don't, and it's like, when I'm stuck in the middle of being lonely, the last place, it's like, I want to be with a girl. I'm on cloud 9 when I'm cuddled up with a beautiful girl, But, that's the problem. That's the problem with life, is that they want you to, instead of going to a strip club, they want you to go to church. Oh, we can't do that. I told you the story about church. I dealt with people who tried to get money out of me. I dealt with people who tried to do things I didn't want to do. It's like, forget it. I was a part of a church for 4 years here in Grand Rapids. I left because, people were trying to shove me into the world of drama over there. But, folks, that's the problem. Too many people want the strip club industry closed because there's so much stigma about it. And people need to know the truth about strip clubs. The strip club, the truth is, there's little to no sex trafficking in that industry. There's a lot of, some of the friendliest people I've ever met were exotic dancers. Some of them had the same walk I did. I met a girl many years ago at the one in Kalamazoo, Deja Vu in Kalamazoo. She had a bad childhood. I didn't have a great childhood either. And, because of what happened to her as a little girl, she was on multiple medications. And she even said, I didn't even want kids because I don't want them to go through the same shit I did. And I feel her pain. And, the point is that strip clubs are more realistic than church. And not only that, you hear about all these churches that rape children, who, the pastor drives around in a much nicer car than you do and lives in a nicer neighborhood than you do and nicer house and this, that, and everything else. All these televangelists on TV like Kenneth Copeland, they fly around in a $70 million jet plane. While you can't even, here you are at the airport. You can only, if you, you're lucky to afford a plane ticket, tail end of the plane. But then at the same time, they're like, flying coach. There's demons in coach. Folks, we can't allow these people to run our government, but they already are. And they're running it with a lot of hypocrisy. They all supported Trump. And now Trump is, they're like, we can't kill children. Oh, abortion is murder. And that they're bombing away in Iran. Oh, please, for the love of God, November, come quick. Please, November. By the way, and one more thing. A couple more things, actually. Let's do this first. We didn't do this last week because Trixie, my dog, was pulling me around. Let's see what is playing on 1680 this week. Yeah, 1680. Let's see what Tyrone is doing. A couple of days I was checking it out, and they're not full. Yeah, they're not on the air. Okay, I got to turn off. Yeah, I don't want David Bowie's estate to flag my video. Okay, 1680. Static. 102.5. I think she's saying Jesus. Oh, God. Yeah, I wish the FCC would just take that license away from Tyrone. The most irresponsible broadcaster in all of Grand Rapids, period, end stop, right there. He should never own a radio station. And I'm still pissed off about what he did. By the way, speaking of 1680, Tracy Kornack, we talked about her recently. Her case is going to circuit court. And, of course, she was the one responsible for getting Darren Gibson fired from 1680 because he was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and Kornack was a vote blue no matter who person. So, yeah, I'm a Bernie supporter too, but anything to get Trump out of the White House, and get rid of him. We got to get rid of him, folks. 25th Amendment. The guy is in very poor health. By the way, yeah. Do a search for Tom the Dancing Bug, by the way. Tom the Dancing Bug. I love that comic strip. Drawn by a guy named Reuben Bowling. Very funny strip that he did this week. It was called Dementia Donnie, in which Donald is, it's an alternate universe. But instead of Donald as the President of the United States, he's in a dementia ward at a home because instead of getting his money from his father, Fred Trump, what happens is Fred Trump gives all of his money to the Ku Klux Klan. So Donald is now in instead of being in the White House, he is, he's in a nursing home. And it's so funny because it's true. Sad but true. By the way, recently we gave a Hero of the Day, and this is our last item. We gave the Hero of the Day to the Chalfont Foundation. Chalfont Foundation, they own the Elk Rapids Cinema in Elk Rapids, my hometown. Chalfont was founded by a Catholic priest named Jim Meyer, who wanted to improve the lives of young children in Detroit. And one of the things that he did was he took them up to Elk Rapids to go camping, and then he passed away. And after he died, the people who were running the organization bought the Elk Rapids Cinema from its longtime owner, Joe Wilkos, the family of Wilkos, because Wilkos passed away. So they're getting a slap on the wrist this week. Not a full Bee-otches of the day, but a slap on the wrist, because they're going to be showing Passion of the Christ for Easter. And I guess they want to make it a yearly event. Now, the reason why I'm giving them a slap on the wrist is due to the fact that, they talked about Jim Meyer and the fact that he was pro-civil rights. And yet Mel Gibson, the man who made this film, he's a fucking racist. And Howard Stern, of course, used to play his phone calls all the time, or he used the N-word, and it's like this guy, and it's like this was a movie. This movie made, hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office, and Mel Gibson got to pocket a lot of it. So this was another man who was grifting for Jesus, and since then, Hollywood has pretty much written him off, and for good reason. So there you have it. So, I love what they have done to the theater. They've done a good job with the theater, but I hate the fact that, they're supposed to be kind of a left-ish organization, and yet they're showing this god-awful movie that has done absolutely nothing but, basically, in my opinion, monetize Jesus. So, I don't know. Okay, folks, enough of my yapping. I gotta get going. I got a couple of things I gotta do today. So, I hope you have a wonderful week. If you don't hear from me anytime soon, I'm probably just busy at work, making the big bucks. Because, hey, they need me over there, and so does my father. I want to see I'll go back and check on how he's doing. So, good day and good luck. I will talk to you again, maybe this week, maybe next Sunday. I don't know. But as it is, take care. Bye-bye.